Daily Ledger contributor Kimberly Dvorak. Kimberly, okay, so what was produced from this well-publicized from the White House summit meeting at Camp David, even though 4 of the 6 heads of state did not show up? What came out of this?
Well, we learned that Bahrain is actually friendly with the Queen of England. That was a big, we learned that was kind of interesting, that horses were more important than dealing with the United States. But on a more serious note here, what we learned is there was nothing written down on paper for either side to sign. And you have President Obama saying that, in essence, we will give you or sell you more arsenal, more military equipment, as long as you in turn are going to work with us on democracy. We want you guys to become democratic countries, which is just laughable.
It's a joke.
It's a joke. It's a laughable offense. But that's how he kind of parsed the words to make it look like we were getting something out of the deal.
These people have no interest in becoming democratic.
No.
Right?
No.
They're dictatorial.
Yep, dictators, sheikhs, kings, you name it.
But one thing that they do want out of this Iran deal is some sort of verification system, and that really is one of the key linchpins here, correct, with the Iran nuke deal?
Yeah, they want some sort of say, but, you know, it's becoming more and more apparent that the president is most likely going to defy Congress on this and go ahead and authorize some sort of nuclear deal. And that's going to open up billions of dollars. You already have corporations all over the world lining up to do business with Iran. Now, the caveat is that the Iranians are supposed to promise that they're going to build their infrastructure, right, and that they will not be pursuing further nuclear weapons. We know that's not going to be the case. They'll be able to go out and arm Hezbollah and Hamas and some other terrorist organizations with possibly some of the weapons that they're picking up on the battlefield. As we saw over the weekend, Ramadi fell, and again, they turn around and left their tanks and their weapons and their arsenal, and who has control of those weapons now? And that would be ISIS.
Okay, but back to Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and these other Gulf nations. They are now extremely fearful that because of this deal that Obama is brokering, that Iran will indeed get the bomb. Israel, thinks the same thing. So now there's an undercurrent as well, is there not, of Saudi Arabia saying, hey, listen, if these guys continue on the pace that they're continuing, that is Iran, and get a nuclear bomb, we're going to get one too. And what does that do to the region? Yeah,
I think that, we've discussed this before here. I mean, we built up a nuclear arsenal, and so did Russia, and the whole mutually assured destruction kind of calmed that entire situation down. We're like, okay, you have it, you got it, let's forget it now. We're not going to use that. I don't think that most Americans, and I don't think most, Western allied partners in the Middle East as well as in Europe are very comfortable with the fact that Saudi Arabia has a nuclear weapon and Iran has a nuclear weapon. They wouldn't have too much of a problem of using that. So I think that's the fear. You're not working with countries or nations that actually are looking outside the caliphate.
Right, and when you look at Obama and what you just quoted him saying, or at least implying that, hey, if you folks become a democracy, which is nonsense, because you have to have a civil society before you build a democracy. You don't just impose democracy. Look what happened in Egypt. But it shows how naive he is. So here we have a guy his foreign policy is a disaster, and he's negotiating with terrorists who Ronald Reagan said many, many years ago, never negotiate with terrorists. So we have two groups that are negotiating together that can't be trusted. How in the world can anything good come of this?
Well, I think that what you're seeing now, and another paradox here, is that we had over the weekend the Iraqi president go over to Iran and meet with Ayatollah Khomeini. And I think what you're going to see is kind of the coalescing of the Shias onto one side. Iraq kind of came out and said, look, we're worried about Iran, we don't want them here, but they're Shia, they're primarily Shia.
Right.
And you've got Iran that's primarily Shia, and this is setting up for what we've been discussing here on the Ledger Show for the past couple of years, that this is a Sunni versus Shia fight, and they will fight till the death, and I think we're ebbing closer to a war where it's going to really be the Sunni versus the Shia, and whoever wins, I guess we say God help Israel, because they're the first target.
And Saudi Arabia and Iran are on opposite ends of that, of course, historically speaking. Real quick, only about 10, 15 seconds left. You mentioned Congress, and I want to touch on that just very briefly, and that is, in my opinion, Congress is giving away the store here. They're abdicating their constitutional duty and allowing Obama to continue on this farce.
Yeah, I think that what you're seeing is that the Republicans are kind of trying maybe a different strategy. I don't think it's a very smart one, but they're saying, look, when this all falls apart, because it's going to, then they can point the finger and blame the Democrats on this. And I just don't, you're playing with people's lives in that region, and that just is no way to operate.
Well, I hope you're wrong, but I have a feeling you're right. Kimberly, thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up next...